Hello and welcome to the METALHEADS Podcast. My name is George.
This is Buke.
And we are here today with several of the guys from A Flourishing Scourge. Would you guys like to, introduce yourselves and say what you do?
This is Ty. I'm the main vocalist, and I also play guitar.
This is Kevin. I'm on bass. This is Andrew on guitars.
Excellent.
Gentlemen, let me first start off by saying it is an honor to have our first grunge band from Seattle join the podcast.
Bringing it back.
We're bringing it back.
We're taking it back. Could you start us off with a little introduction, basically who you are, where you're from, how did you guys get together, and how long have you been together?
Yeah, so it kind of started as a garage project between me and Josh. Josh is the one that couldn't be here today. And it grew from there. It started off just writing songs, mapping out drums, tinkering, recording, figuring out like who would sing, what the voice would be, what the song structures would be. And it kind of became more official when Kevin joined us. That was probably 2014, about a year ago now, actually. That's when we picked a name. We started to create a web presence and put songs online and start looking for other members and things like that. And then we finally found Andrew earlier this year, probably this spring time frame. And that's when we were able to actually go out and perform the songs in front of people. So we've really only been playing shows for just under 6 months, I'd say.
So you guys are pretty fresh.
Yeah, it's all very fresh. We just finished recording the first EP, which is our oldest batch of songs from probably from 2013, and we've been writing more material since then. So we've got a whole slew of new songs that we've been performing live, and we're getting ready to record in the near future.
And that EP is called As Beauty Fades Away, which I believe was released in September?
Yeah, that was early September.
Is there any stories with the EP that you'd like to tell us about, or, just talk about it a little bit?
Sure. We produced it all in-house, actually. I've been building up slowly over the years some recording gear and stuff like that, so I'm into the production and all that sort of stuff. So we were able to rig up everything here and record it in our studio space, our practice space, and so that was an interesting experience. It's the first time I've actually sat down and tried to record an album start to finish, and we did have a timeline. We had kind of made some obligations around it. We had set up a couple of shows to support it, so we had to kind of work under an amount of pressure like a studio environment would be, and so yeah, it was interesting to put all that together ourselves. Definitely a lot goes into putting an album to disc. That's when you really have to make decisions about the song, what you're going to eventually cut or keep or add or subtract, whatever it may be. That's when it really matters the most. You can make demos and play it live all you want, but once you commit it to disc, it's live for the world, and it's hard to change it at that point. So,
yep.
So that part's also kind of interesting.
Ty, I want to give a nod to all you guys, you especially for setting it up and recording it on your own. Like we've mentioned on this podcast before, George and I and our guys who do join us, we live on sites like Bandcamp. We're checking out albums daily, tens to hundreds a week. It's rare that we listen to something and within seconds of listening it, you're like, man, first off, this is recorded well.
Really?
Because it's still rare. And I say that also because it blows George and I away that you guys are doing this on your own in your own little studio, producing the sound that you guys have. For the people who haven't heard you guys, what you released as Beauty Fades Away is a 4-song EP. Was the decision all along just to get these 4 songs out, even though you said it's the oldest stuff, just to start to put your guys' name out there?
Yeah, that was kind of the eventual decision. We have 2 batches of songs that were written kind of close together. So that was the first batch of songs. That was from when this was the original little project in the garage, just writing and tinkering. And so they kind of represented a period of time in my mind for the band and the sound that we were creating at that time. A year later, we started writing the next batch of songs. This was around the time Kevin joined, and we had, we were in more of a practice cycle and things like that. And that batch of songs also was kind of cohesive together, and also I thought had kind of graduated in sound and structure from the original song. So I wanted to kind of slice those off in time, do our best version of those, and then put them out there.
The one thing that, as people who listen to this podcast know, I am a big Opeth fan. I'm not saying that to lump you guys into being an Opeth clone, but when you have tracks that are like 8 minutes long, 7.5 minutes long, was it hard to say, man, I don't know if these really fit on an EP?
I like the fact that it's a 4-song EP, but it's over half an hour worth of music. It's hard for me to write short, simple, structured songs. I like to let the music flow. We like to kind of just see where the song likes to go. And in fact, it's hard for me to cut them off at 8 minutes even, but I like to keep them. I have a certain song length that I like, kind of a sweet spot, and too much more or less sometimes is, songs can get too long or be too short, cut off early, and so I don't know. I just kind of, we end them where they feel right. But
Kevin and Andrew, I'll ask you guys this: when you guys start to write songs like this, with the longer song structure, who starts it off, I should say, or do you guys all have something in your head together that you guys kind of meet at once and as a starting off point?
Yeah, like, do you just like jam and it evolves from that, or does somebody come to the group and say, hey, I have this, let's flesh this out?
That is actually a very timely question, because as Ty mentioned, as we came in, so we cut off the first 30 minutes for the EP, and we have about 30 minutes of new songs. And our goal is to write 2 or 3 new songs, fill that out, and go in and do a full length release probably next summer. So, but for the first time, this is the first time we have all of us together, and where Andrew and I will both be part of the actual writing process. So for the first time yesterday, we literally sat down and were like, okay, how are we going to approach this? So we're still trying to figure that out. So right now we're doing a little hybrid of people bringing in riffs and song ideas and jamming out a little bit and trying just to kind of see where it goes.
Now, obviously, apparently things are still going well for the first time because you guys are all sitting next to one another still.
Yes.
No disagreements yet.
Exactly. No disagreements yet. No one's holding a knife to someone's throat saying, this will be in this song.
That's why we don't have a camera at this end.
We can't see the hands around each other's throats.
But guys, when you since George and I aren't in a band, we just do the little podcast here. Do you guys ever have that something in your head that's kind of like your metaphorical hill you'll die on, that you're like, damn it, Ty, you're not taking this out of the fucking song?
Well, fortunately, we've never really had to, get to a point where it seems like the ideas are so fresh right now, and everybody's still so open to everybody else's contribution, that we've fortunately never really gotten into a point where we're going to have to die on that hill.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's been a couple times when people have said, hey, I really like this part, let's make sure we keep that in. And it's always important to kind of pick out the parts that you want to keep in, but we've never really had any disagreement, fortunately.
Yeah.
So but usually if that does happen, I'm just going to kick their ass and go with my part.
we have trimmed some fat. I mean, we've had songs and riffs and stuff that we just left out because they just weren't quite fitting what we were trying to do. We just knew that they weren't right. But yeah, I mean, that's never been, we've been able to put feelings aside there, and just when something wasn't right, we shelved it.
Mm-hmm. When you go to do the full album, is that going to be all new material, or are you going to incorporate the EP with extra material?
No, that's going to be all new material.
Yeah, excellent.
And we're like Kevin said, we're about half an hour into that material. We're shooting for another 15 or 20 minutes worth, and we've got skeletons of songs for all that going already. So yeah, we're shooting for hopefully well, we're thinking like spring time frame.
Excellent.
Who does the lyrics for the band?
Josh wrote, actually, that's part of what the original, when we started this thing, he approached me and he had a whole bunch of like kind of almost poems written. And so we were going to base the lyrics off of those. And as we figured out who was going to be doing the vocals, as we started out, I just played guitar and drums, and I didn't, neither of us really sang. So I started to develop my vocal style, and as the songs took form, I would take his kind of poems and apply them as lyrics, chop them up into phrases and make them fit the pace of the song and whatnot. So that's how the lyrics started. At this point, everyone's contributed a little bit lyrically, which is cool that we can all kind of pitch in. We have enough of a common vision, it seems, that we can all contribute lyrics and they all kind of fit the general direction of what they're saying. So I'm writing lyrics at this point. Everyone's kind of just, when they're feeling lyrics or they're having an idea for something, they are pitching in.
Your practice space, is that like in somebody's house, or do you have like a dedicated, practice place where, where bands go to, practice and record and such?
Yeah. Fortunately and otherwise, that's in my basement. Is basically converted to our practice space. So,
okay.
Which is awesome to be able to have that, because we can stay up late nights, writing, practicing, being creative, doing whatever we want to do. So it's great to have it. It kind of butts up to our studio room where we have the recording gear and stuff. So we're able to have kind of a live space out there, and then a recording space in the back where we can have some separation even. So it works out beautifully. It's nice to have it.
Cool. The reason I asked was because our third Mike, Jay, he's also in a band. They're called Catatonic Society out of the Berkeley, San Francisco area. And they have like a practice space, and there's a bunch of other bands that use the same area. And it's just kind of interesting, I think, to Buke and I, that there's sort of this camaraderie on the scene where these people are all sort of playing together. And this was going to lead to my question of, how's the metal scene in Seattle? And is there one?
Because us here in the East Coast, growing up, my whole life, you don't associate Seattle area at all with metal.
Well, I do. I'm older. I
you're
predate
older.
that. I remember like Sanctuary and stuff like that.
Well, yeah. So speaking of the current metal scene in Seattle, it exists there. I mean, there is one. We have had a hard time finding people that are doing exactly what we're trying to do. So while it exists, it's been hard for us it's not very conducive for us at the moment. So we're reaching out. We're still trying to find, the bands that are trying to do what we're doing, but it's kind of it's a much more American sounding, metal scene here. A lot of the core metalcore type stuff, and it's just like we've played with a lot of good bands, and what they do, they're good at, but it's been kind of awkward bills that we've had to put together. It's a lot of like doom and sludge metal and stuff like that, which we all dig. Like we love that, yeah. But it's not exactly, it contrasts with ours interestingly.
I'd like to see more shows like that personally. When you go to we were talking about this on a previous episode, when you go to a show and it's all death metal or it's all black metal or it's all doom metal, you kind of, especially if there's like 5 to 7 bands on the bill, you're kind of burned out at the end of the show. Having something that mixes it up would actually be kind of nice, but apparently that doesn't happen a lot in the U.S. That's more of a European thing.
Yeah, it's been a side effect of the fact that we can't actually find any bands that are sounding just like what we're doing. So it's interesting though. You're right. It does add some diversity to the bill. Especially for local shows. Not necessarily everyone is there to hear one particular band or style or sound. So, you've got a pretty diverse audience a lot of the times anyway. So why not give them some diverse music?
Exactly.
Are you guys, it's no secret that, no one's going to be getting a private jet off of playing metal nowadays.
Oh, what?
Up.
We just killed their dreams.
Bubble burst.
That's it. We're bursting bubbles on this podcast every week. Are you guys at a point in your life where, you can get a little exposure from the internet and you can maybe start to play maybe a West Coast tour, maybe Midwest?
Yeah, we're giving some thought to that. Basically, with the EP release, we consider that just kind of like a quote unquote real band's album cycle, and we've just kind of done just local gigs, kind of up and down Washington here for the last few months, kind of as like a touring cycle in support of that. So. I think the idea now is to shut down for a little bit, write these songs, get in the studio, push out the album, and then we're starting to thinking about doing some West Coast stuff. Hopefully, maybe as soon as the summer or next fall. We've again, one of these things. When you're meeting all these bands, it's really interesting how big your kind of little network web and how fast that starts to spread. And so we've got friends in Portland, Oregon, guys we've played with from San Francisco. Apparently you guys know someone in San Francisco, so let's see where this is going. Yep. But Vancouver.
And our podcast is heard in over 100 countries around the world. So, hey, if guys from like Sweden are calling you to play shows, if you're looking to play down in San Francisco, let us know. Maybe Jay's always looking to hook people up to play with down there.
Yeah, and then that is exactly how the system works these days. It's really word of mouth, who you know, who can get you on a bill in some certain town and stuff like that. As you guys know, as you guys are carrying the metal flag forward here on your podcast, which we appreciate, but it's it's still very much in kind of an underground thing, which is why we love it, right? So, but we definitely, I think, if anything, we're a little bit frustrated at the lack of kind of solidarity among the metal bands in Seattle. It seems like on the East Coast, it seems like guys really tend to kind of band together, no pun intended, and kind of work through the system a little bit. And definitely you see that in Europe and places like that. But in West Coast, it's just kind of a really weird scene.
Do you think that's... I'm sorry, go ahead, George.
I was just going to say, Jay related a story to us that he may or may not disclose on the podcast later about a show that he had a night or two ago where there was just not bands just not getting along on a big bill. And so that sort of just reminded me of that when you said
George,
that.
Yeah, Jay was... Jay was talking about one of those bills where you play with like 10 other bands, which seems to be common, he was saying now, for how they're booking shows.
And basically bands weren't being very courteous to each other.
Yeah, I mean, I don't feel like we've had that any direct discourtesy. Well, I don't know. It's hard to say. Yeah, but it hasn't felt very, not a good camaraderie.
Well, if you haven't had it yet, okay, well, you asshole piece of shit, here you go.
Here's your chance to blast somebody. No, we don't recommend that. But I was curious. I was actually just out in Seattle a couple months ago. Where's a good place to see a metal show in Seattle?
There's a few good ones. Studio 7 gets a lot of national acts. They get basically everything there, as well as a lot of good local metal shows. El Corazon is the same. They get a lot of the.
I saw that place.
Touring. Yeah, so it depends on what you're looking for. Like if you want to see a national act or whatever, those are the places to go. Also, the Highline is a good one for local. They do a lot more like better known local type of a lot of black metal and stuff like that. What else we got around here? The Pneumos is good. That's kind of a mix. They got rock, metal, hard rock, everything there. I mean, there's some smaller ones. The Kraken, the Mix. It depends on how local you want to go and how gritty. There's some like converted house to venue type of place venues where it's just basically a big house party show, and so there's lots of good little places, and there's kind of a good underground black metal thing going here. Mm-hmm. Some of that kind of like, I don't know, lo-fi black metal resurgent stuff, a lot of cassette tapes and leather jackets and stuff, which is cool. Like, so there is that scene, which also like we don't quite fit into with what we're doing, but I mean that does exist here, and that's cool.
Are you guys all homegrown, or did anybody come from somewhere else and end up in Seattle? Ty, I'm from here primarily. I've kind of lived all around this area. I moved away for a few years, came back, but
I would say that I'm homegrown. Yeah. Well, Kevin.
I actually grew up in Texas, and then I lived out in Hawaii for about 10 years and moved here about a year and a half ago.
Is Dog the Bounty Hunter your hero?
He is.
He's all our hero, really.
Yeah,
Okay,
of
brah.
course.
Okay, brah.
And then Andrew.
Yeah, I'm originally from Florida on the East Coast. Lived in Virginia a little bit. And,
Okay.
We're from Maryland.
Yeah, we're in Virginia.
lived in Chesapeake and Fredericksburg area.
Okay, that's not far.
Yeah, so been out in Seattle for about 3.5, 4 years.
As a group, what brought you guys together? Was it, did you have a comment? Did you guys work together? Like a girlfriend, wife? Was it, just
how
seeing
did you
each other
meet?
at the show?
So, going back to the beginning, Josh and I were kind of acquaintances through a friend that I've had since I was, growing up. So I'd always kind of known him through friends, and when we both realized we wanted to do a similar music project is when we started hanging out and getting creative with music and stuff. Since then, it was hard to find the other right players. We did some auditions, like we posted on Craigslist and started meeting people that way, and eventually that's how we met Kevin and Andrew. I think was through Craigslist. There still seems to be no better other way.
That's the second band now.
Yep.
Yeah.
You didn't accidentally hook up with anybody while you were looking for band members.
No, but it honestly feels like a weird dating cycle as you're like auditioning people and like deciding whether or not to move forward, and when you have to make a cut or like or whatever to turn someone down, it feels like a weird breakup, and sometimes people get pissed and you try not to
I see a business opportunity here to create a website for heavy metal musicians to find each other so that they don't have to use Craigslist and dirty their hands.
And a bunch of websites try it. Like I looked into that because I was thinking somebody must have a better system by now, surely. And there's a bunch of like little sites that are trying to do it, but if nobody's like buying into any one of them,
Right.
then there's nothing on there. So like they've got this nice idea of a site, and in theory that's great, but there's just a bunch of inactive stuff on there.
Yeah,
No.
you need like a something big like a record label or somebody like
Yeah.
Metal Hammer to back it so everybody knows about it.
The de facto place to go.
Exactly.
Now, outside of the band, do you guys hang out, or is it really just a band thing? Because I've seen bands later on, decades into their career, it's clear that this was just a business for them.
Right.
The friendship has kind of fallen by the wayside.
No, we do hang out. We just got back from a trip we all took to through California to the Opeth anniversary show.
You guys
So-
trying to make me jealous?
Yeah,
Make me
a little
jealous?
bit.
Did they play Ghost Reveries start to finish?
Yeah, in its entirety. That was the first half of the show, which was flawless. It was great. And then the second half was interesting. Actually, it was they had all kinds of like technical issues throughout the second half, and just like things were going wrong, and it
Really?
felt like. Yeah, it felt like watching one of our shows. It was kind of relieving though, like to see, these gods of metal that have been doing this for 25 years are still human, and they still suffer some of the same bullshit that we do.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to see a human side actually to one of our long time
Yeah. Ty,
influences.
do you mind when people call you guys or they say the Opeth sound is there? Do you mind that at all? Does it offend you at all? Because people look at me and they're like, "Oh, there's Brock Lesnar again." I'm like, "Please stop." Come on.
No, because I do it also for music. To me, Opethian represents just a contrast in extreme and melancholy, and it's just at this point it's not even to compare directly to the band. It's just to describe kind of a subgenre that I feel they spearheaded. That others have also fallen into. You can call a lot of bands Opethian just from mixing folkish guitars.
George and I were talking about getting vests done for Maryland Death Fest next year, and I was thinking of a back patch, and I wanted to get this Still Life back patch, and George's like, "You can't do that now. Opeth is too mainstream now.
And, everybody has that. It's all about having the most obscure thing.
It is, yeah.
A Flourishing Scourge back patch.
There you go.
Yes.
Doesn't get much
A backhanded
more
compliment there.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, so
Yeah.
when you guys write music, do you say, do you sit down and go, let's write some progressive black and death metal? Or do you just write the music and what comes out, and then somebody else like us comes along and slaps a label on you?
It's more the second. Like,
Yeah.
It's just, I don't write very intentionally. Like, it kind of just is a stream of thought, one thing flows to the next. Sometimes things flow together to where they connect to two song parts that I have written, and now it's, that's how it kind of became the two-part structure that it did, and it just kind of, and we have kind of ideas of writing a very intentional, like a concept album or something, but we're considering what to do after this next batch of songs. Like, would we just keep writing the way we have been, or would we write something intentional where we have a theme rolling through it and we're trying to write music to match that, or like almost a challenge to ourselves to see what we could create. So yeah, that's all stuff we're talking about as a band. Like Kevin said, we're kind of reaching the first real point where we have that opportunity to write as a whole unit.
For the other guys, Kevin and Andrew, how is it, guys, playing these longer, what you guys play live? Because, sometimes I've seen these bands, with just Opeth, like, jamming out. And it's like, man, do they mind playing these songs for like 10 minutes just doing this? And if you mess up, does it stick with you? And you're like, oh no, I'm messing up. And then the next 8 minutes, you're just thinking of that one mess up over and over again.
It does eat away at you a lot. But I'm the bass player, so I just play root notes, so it's cool. No, but I kind of grew up listening to prog. I like Rush and the real proggy middle stages and that type of stuff. And so I've always kind of been attracted to longer song structures. And I think Ty did a good job of articulating that, song kind of doesn't necessarily just have to have one theme. It makes it a lot more interesting to listen to, in my opinion. Maybe not so much for some other people.
You pray at the Church of Dream Theater?
I was an early Dream Theater fan, I have to admit. So I'm kind of older too, so I was fortunate enough to first start to enjoy metal like right when Master of Puppets hit. So I got to ride that whole thing through, and then Dream Theater came out when grunge hit, so everybody was trying to grasp onto something. So I do appreciate their musicianship. I think over the years their songs have been a little bit too deliberate, as probably the exact opposite of what we're talking about. But
Deliberate, that's a good word.
We talked about it on the podcast last week. Did you see Fate's Warning is playing Prog Power next year?
I did not see that, but that's awesome.
With John Arch, that is, on vocals,
Really?
Not just any old Fates Warning, but the
See,
original
I know what
lineup.
you're talking about. These young pups next to me are like, who the fuck's Faith Warner? That's all right. They keep me around to keep it real. So
Nice.
But no, I really enjoy playing the longer songs. It's very interesting. It's really nice to be able to kind of keep that thread as you're kind of going through this little journey, and that's how I kind of look at it. Is I really have little stories I tell myself in my head about little parts that how they kind of make me feel emotionally or whatever.
There's an interesting point I want to hit on quick. You said your diving in point was Master of Puppets. Was the guys next to you? Was there a jumping in point like Kill Switch Engage? Like,
what did you get started on in metal?
And Justice for All for me.
Good answer.
Yeah, I think we're all. I mean, Kevin's right. Like, I grew up. I was pretty young in the '80s, so I really started hitting music in the early '90s. But what I started listening to, and what I listened to growing up, was always my dad's records. So it was classic rock for the most part. Black Sabbath and Supertramp and that kind of stuff. So I got into some of the old, early heavy metal and prog rock stuff through that, and also all sorts of shit. My first exposure to like modern metal was, I think I bought Metallica's first album, Kill 'Em All, along with like a Nine Inch Nails album and something else, and those really stuck with me. And then I heard Ride the Lightning and Master Puppets, and where they went after this kind of more straight thrashy album, and I heard the song structures and I heard just the movements in it, and it was more like somebody had composed a piece of classical music and just layered, the right tones on top of it, and it was just a masterpiece to me. So Metallica was a huge writing influence for me growing up. But those first 4 albums.
Do you guys think that someone's jumping off point is Saint Anger?
Oh, God, I hope not. I mean, if they're jumping off a bridge, maybe.
Yeah, I'm waiting to do an interview where we ask this question, and somebody's like, "Well, I really first got into heavy music with Disturbed." At that point, I'm like, okay, and that's all the time we have for today.
The end of our...
Yes. Yeah, Skype is breaking up now. I don't know
we'll call you back. No, really.
Oh, man. Yeah, God, I hope not. But yeah, and then, once I heard Cannibal Corpse, that changed things for me also, to realize that people were taking it to that degree. So after that, as I could, I explored all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, being the old graybeard that I am, I had to really make a lot of changes over the years. I started off with the old 70s, early 80s metal, and then I was like, oh, what's this? Thrash? Okay. And then I had to go, oh, death metal. And what's that? That's okay. And then move on to black metal, and it's cool in a way to have seen all of this, but I know a lot of people that just sort of bailed out along the way because they just couldn't get into the next phase, so to speak. And it's cool, when people actually like more than one style.
Yeah, I mean, it's been kind of an evolving genre. We were just talking about this the other day. It evolved into so many subgenres that you can't categorize anything as just metal anymore, because that doesn't mean anything. What kind of metal? And I don't know if to the untrained ear, if it all just sounds like metal still, like noise or whatever, but, as somebody that listens to metal now, there's so many subgenres. I don't necessarily like all metal anymore. It's not all quite the same thing.
Yeah, it was part of why I asked you that question earlier about, your thoughts going into writing a song and what sort of style, because I've talked to a lot of bands and I've asked that question a few times just because I'm sort of suspecting that, bands don't really think about style beyond, it's metal and it's just what's coming out of us. It's really more the fans and the media that tend to slap these labels on, and they just become more increasingly complicated labels as people reviewers like myself who are trying to explain to people what this sounds like, and they have to slap on 4 different tags to sort of ballpark it. And it's not really fair to the music. And at the same time, I know a lot of bands are like, people call us this, but, I don't really think of us as this. If I was to call us something, I'd say it was this, or I wouldn't even label it at all. And it's just kind of annoying.
It's hard to even self-categorize. People ask us what we are, and we have found the combination of tags that we think best describes it, but it really is just throwing a bunch of attributes together, and we are progressive, black, and death, metal. It's really, I don't know. Maybe it helps for the listeners so that they can kind of really hone in on what they want to hear without, sifting through all the other stuff. But
you also know what though, guys? All these different music players that people like the Spotify's or the Pandora or the Last FM or whatever. What do people do? They type in Opeth radio, and similar bands come up. So unfortunately, you almost kind of have to plug yourself into other bands, not by choice.
But then when you go and place a label on yourself, some kid on his computer in bumfuck wherever is like, oh, no, you're not that. This band is that. You're nothing like them. And so somebody's going to give you shit.
And then you also get these guys who are like, nope, I'm hearing Orchid era with these guys, but I don't know. I'm not hearing Blackwater Park area.
See, I think...
Yeah. Which era Opeth are they?
I think all this... I was just going to say, I think all this splitting hairs and just making more and more subgenres makes it harder for metal fans in general to be diverse, because they sort of pick their subgenre that they like and they stick with it. And, like I said, because I've come from across so many eras of metal, I like everything. Other than I don't really care for most new metal and gent. Not a big fan of gent, but if it's good, it's good. And I don't care what the label is. I only use labels so in a basically a lazy attempt to describe music. You know, as a reviewer, I should be saying, well, the guitars sound like this and the vocals sound like this, instead of just taking the easy way out and going, oh, it's progressive black death metal.
Yeah. But I mean, like you say, it's kind of a necessary evil to be able to, at a high level, group music into buckets for people that can't appreciate all varieties of it.
All right, well, we're getting ready to play you a song from A Flourishing Scourge. The first song we're going to play for you is called Infected. You guys want to talk about this song at all before we play it?
Yeah, this was a riff that I had written a long time before it became this song, and it just kind of took form from there. This was one of the earlier songs we ever wrote. I think this was the third one we wrote. It's the opener of our EP, and I don't know. I guess that's all I've got for it.
I was speaking. It sold me on it, so I'm assuming it'll sell our listeners.
Yeah, lyrically themed. Well, I don't like to describe the lyrics. I like people to interpret the lyrics and take their own meaning from it. So I'll just let people.
What's it mean, man? What's it mean?
What's any of it mean?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, here you go. This is Infected from A Flourishing Scourge from As Beauty Fades Away. All right, here we are at the end of the episode, and as promised, we have more music for you from A Flourishing Scourge. But before we get to that, we have a few more questions.
Gentlemen, you guys have released this album on your own label, Begotten Records. What was the choice to do that? Is that for possible other bands in the future? Was that to just put a label on it? What's the background on that?
Yeah, I mean, so it served a couple of purposes. We did self-produce the album, and we had to release it under something. We don't have a proper label, so we did actually create a business entity for the band and a separate entity for anything that we do production related. We've actually put together a handful of our own shows and released this album. And the idea was always to kind of leave that open for the future. Like, I personally love recording and producing music, other people's music, my music, whatever. So I love the idea of us potentially being able to find bands to work with and help, do what we can to help to grow some more of this type of scene that we're doing. We've had ideas of putting a compilation record together with some of the bands that we played with, whether they want to contribute an existing song or come in and record a song with us. So yeah, it's really, we do have ideas for it. It's kind of a juggling act of focusing on band efforts as well as the Begotten records or Begotten side of things.
Okay, so any kids in any high school garage band, send your mixtapes to 100 P.O. Box, Seattle, Washington.
We'll accept cassette.
Cassettes are so wrong. Having chewed up many a cassette, I was glad to be done with those. I can't imagine why people got retro and wanted to do that again. Vinyl, I get. We're all about vinyl, but cassettes, man, they just sound like shit.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure what the resurgence is about. And maybe Andrew, he seems to understand that one better.
Andrew, come on.
Yeah, okay, no.
This is Kevin. All right,
Andrew's got various opinions on this.
I just like cassettes, and like you said, vinyl came back, and it's everybody's favorite now. But cassettes are the affordable alternative.
I still have like 600 of them in my garage. I should be putting these up on eBay and probably make some decent money.
Well, for me, and you'll appreciate this, George, is that, back in the day it was all about tape trading.
Oh, yeah.
That's how Metallica came about. So it's still kind of this cool little metal thing, too. We do have cassettes, so, don't talk too much shit. But you'd be surprised how many people want to come and grab a little piece of that stuff on it. So it's just something fun, mainly,
Yeah, it's mostly just, I like sound quality, and I've just, being old school like that, I've experienced so much pain from cassettes that when CDs came along, I was like, thank God, I don't have to, if I want to hear this song again, I don't have to rewind it, or, it was just such a hassle. But I mean, yeah, me and my friends back in the mid and late 80s, we made our own, mixtapes and, you dubbed tapes and that was how everybody heard about all these different bands back then. So
that's why George never got a girlfriend in high school, because he was always doing "I Love You" metal mixtapes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just how he said it.
Yep.
Hey guys, 2 more questions for me, and I'll let you guys enjoy your day. First off, the album artwork on the EP, it's amazing. Did you guys take that from somewhere? Did you guys have somebody draw it? If you can't answer that, don't answer it. But I fucking love it.
No, it's actually it's a classic painting. It's called The Triumph of Death, and it seemed appropriate. It was era appropriate. It was thematically appropriate. It shows kind of just the triumph of death over life in the painting. It's actually a cool painting. You ought to look it up and see it in its entirety. It's just kind of, we've cut sections out of it for the album, but the painting itself is really cool. It shows kind of this scourge of death, basically eating away the life of this like otherwise happy, colorful Renaissance scene, and it just was
blowing my mind.
It was just exactly what As Beauty Fades Away needed, and what A Flourishing Scourge kind of represents from a deeper perspective. And so it was just the perfect piece of art
Is that the band's logo? Is that it?
The font on the album there.
Right. Yeah, the font on the album.
It currently is. It's never been officially drawn by an artist. We're actually still considering like getting a nice drawn version of it. It was always the idea to have a font that was kind of elegant, like as if somebody had just scribbled it with a fucking quill pen and dropped the ink blot type of thing. I wanted it to have some hint of metal, but not be this drippy blood type of thing,
or look like a bunch of sticks that you just threw on the ground.
Yeah. I mean, I love all of that, but I don't know. Our music to me is slightly different. It's not
a little more elegant.
It's just not this brutal death metal. I mean, there's just there's enough of that we just don't do that. So we're trying to, I guess, represent the elegance that metal can be.
I should have asked this earlier, but what exactly does the band's name mean?
Well, I mean, I guess that depends on who you ask. I have my thoughts on what it means. To me, the A Flourishing Scourge is us. We, to get deeper and philosophical, mankind is kind of a virus on this planet in its current form. I can see it. I can see the destruction that we inflict on the earth, and I feel like we all should be able to, but don't, because it's inconvenient. So to me, A Flourishing Scourge is us.
This has been Cattle Decapitation. I want to thank you guys for doing
You asked.
No, I'm just messing with you. Speaking about them, have you guys had a chance to listen to their new album?
Oh, fuck yeah.
George and I mentioned this. I saw you on your Facebook, Ty, wearing their shirt.
Yeah. Oh, God.
George and I just talked about them. How has a band that was a grindcore band been able to put out this fucking album that they have now? It's amazing.
They've really evolved.
Yeah. I mean, it's not grindcore in my mind anymore. It's more sophisticated than that. It's really, I mean, it's thoughtful music presented in just the most, in your face, brutal fucking mirror on society way you could imagine. And I just love it. They're one of my favorite bands at the moment. I really love what they've been able to do with the new direction. Really, the last few albums have been evolving into some really awesome stuff. No, that was one of our other recent band trips. We all went and saw them recently when they came through, and it was pretty epic. I smashed my head into the stage. I was headbanging so hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to put either of you, any three of you guys on the spot, but it is November 1st right now. We're getting to the end of the year. Do you guys have an album of the year that's jumping out at you guys?
Let me think of anything.
And also,
the Cattle album would be my pick. And I know we just talked about it, so that's an easy pick, but I have probably listened to that more than any other new album this year.
George and I have gone round and round on this. Can an EP be considered for an album of the year?
If it's REP, yeah.
Good answer.
Has an EP ever been?
I don't think so. I mean, somebody may have.
If it holds its merit, I don't see a reason, I guess, why not.
Before we get into the last song, do you guys want to let people know how they can get a hold of you, where they can get your music, anything like that? Any shows coming up?
Yeah, we have Facebook. We have a Reverb Nation, which has the EP on it. Bandcamp is the best place. It's free to download the whole digital album. You can also buy a physical CD copy. We even have a couple of shirts for sale on there. So Bandcamp is probably the best place to go to get what you're looking for. But we have a Facebook with a bunch of photos and a couple of videos. So yeah, we have a bit of an online presence. It's a unique name. If you type it in, you'll find basically just us. So,
comes right up.
Yeah. We have the album in iTunes and various other formats. Also, it's on Amazon, I think. It's on the internet.
Excellent. Well, get out there and check these guys out.
Hey guys, I'm just curious. This, as George and I mentioned earlier, we do a lot of Bandcamp stuff. Was the name your own price on Bandcamp where people can download it for free? Was that something you guys were going to do all along?
Yeah, for us, it's not really like we understand that we're not going to be flying a private jet anytime soon, and that this is more of an investment than it is a revenue of income. So yeah, we don't really we would rather have people hear our music.
Okay.
We were pretty stoked when we saw that somebody had like ripped it and put the songs on YouTube and so like yeah, that's all we really want is if people hear it like and tell somebody about it. That's it.
Yeah. Well, last thing for me, I'm going to say thanks for joining us again. George, you end it. But the picture on your Facebook page using the Imperial TIE Fighter pilot, double thumbs up for me, gentlemen.
That was Kevin's idea, and
Kevin, I love you. Can you do it for everything you guys do going forward?
Absolutely.
Disney won't mind.
Yeah, Disney won't mind at all. I heard they're very nice with their stuff.
Yeah, they're great people.
All right, well, we'll finish out the episode now with one more song. The song we're going to play is called Of the Tormented and Sick. You guys tell us anything about this one?
Yeah, this was actually the first song we ever finished. It was the first song I ever sang to in this project, and it actually started off with a different name, and we finally picked a better name for it. So yeah, this one is one that's kind of evolved over time from just a cheesy little kind of groovy song into something that we all really like. It's one of my favorites off this album. Yeah, it's one of our favorites.
Excellent. I want to thank you guys again for coming on today. So this is the song Of the Tormented and Sick by A Flourishing Scourge from their EP As Beauty Fades Away. Make sure you go out on Bandcamp or anywhere else and pick it up. These guys are good. Until next time, we're out of here.